Hey, this is Hans from Request for Music. I'm going to create a sound, a more complex sound for DEXZ using the newer functions in there. So, first of all, I'll put in DEXZ, and so I've got it here. And at first, DEXZ shows me all of this, and of course, I need to hook it up. And I've cut parts of the screen off, so I could put the screen of DEXZ itself in as large as possible, but still you would have to, you can see that I have a keyboard. Excuse me, have a keyboard in there so you can see what notes I press on the keyboard. So first of all, I need to connect it, and you won't see it, but I take my poly pitch in and I connect that to the poly source, and I do the same for the gate and the velocity. So at least it's connected, and now of course I need a left and a right output, or otherwise I don't get any sound. So I'm going to shift this over and connect the left and the right outputs to the host. So now I have at least a sine wave, and I can see that I press a key and you hear this sine wave. Now, when I want to create a sound in DEXZ, most of the time I go back to just using one operator first, and I do that by clicking my right mouse button and go into reset controls. So I only have one operator in there. The rest is still in there, and you can see the colors, the purple for the carriers, the ones that are actually giving the sound or passing the sound into the amplifier, and the green ones, the modulators that are on top of a stack, as I call them. So in here I have a stack of 1 and 2, and the other stack, the carrier number 3, with 4, 5 and 6 as modulators on top, which can make for a very complex sound in that part. But in my case, I just want to go with, I like creating pads. So I'm going to create a pad with square waves, for instance. So let's go into the waveform for my number 1, which was now giving me this sine wave. And well, first of all, let's set the envelope to something more useful, where I don't have any direct volume change by using the envelope. So I double click this, and I see in the editor that my number 1 is actually on top, where the number 2 is going straight down, which is the decay phase. So I'm going to take that up to the top, and I'm also shift dragging, or click dragging in this screen to also drag my number 3 up, so I have the maximum sound where the envelope is concerned. And I also put this sound up so I have a bit louder, sine wave in there. So I'm closing this by using the X, and I'm going to use the W sign in here, where I can use any of those waves. Those waves are just simple single waveforms that you can use as an entry into into every operator that you would choose to put it into. Those waveforms are not changing the real behavior of the sound. I mean, if you look at, for instance, a bass guitar here, yes, it is the sound of a bass guitar, the waveform itself, although the waveform changes over time in an actual real bass guitar use, so to speak. In this case, I could just use the bass guitar sound and still have to do a lot with modulators and envelopes to really get it close to sounding like a bass guitar. But at least the minimal waveform the shape of the waveform that you use would at least be bass guitar like. And that works for all of those. And I create waves in my draw wave module quite often, and if I do that and I give them a prefix of dr underscore, I'll see that when I do that, I actually get them in the separate draw category, and I see those sounds here. So if I would look at the original folders where I get these from, you would see that they have a prefix, and you could actually look at all of the other things as well there, because instruments also have a specific prefix, as do the others. And otherwise, if you don't have given anything like that, it would end up in other, or maybe in folders that you put in there. For now, I'm going to use my square wave, so this is it. And so now this is a square wave just by putting that one operator in there and giving it that sound. So what I want to do now is I could actually create a very, very wide, broad, fat kind of sound by using something like algorithm 32, where you would have only carriers, and if every carrier would, as it speaks, or as it says, carry that same sound, you would get 6 operators that you could detune or transpose or whatever to get a different sound. In this case, I do want some other handling in there. I want to modulate the carriers themselves by using next operators. So if I look at number 5, for instance, I have 3 of those stacks as I use them, or as I call them. Number 1 stack, which is keeping carrier number 1 and modulator number 2, the number 2 stack, which consists of 3 and 4, and the number 3 stack, which consists of 5 and 6. And 6 could be fed back into itself. You could use feedback on it. That feedback, the one that is described by this black line, which every algorithm has, but then probably on a different operator, that is actually used by using this knob, or set by using that knob. Every operator itself also has a feedback that is not shown in here, because every operator has that. So first of all, let's have this, and I'm going to copy this number 1 setting to numbers 3 and 5. I see that there is a purplish texture or purplish color that can be seen, so those are the carriers. So what I can do is pressing and keeping pressed my Alt or Option key together with my Shift key, and click in the number area of that operator, and you see that it says copied operator or copied up. And if I now let go of my Shift key, but I still have my Alt or Option key pressed, and click in this number 3, you see P1 with an arrow in 3, and here again P1 with an arrow to 5. So now I have 3 operators that all have this same wave, all these square waves, and they sound together, which makes it louder, of course. So you could take the level back, or you could do stuff like turning the pan on the outsides. So I see the middle stack 3 and 4 as being the center, and 1 and 5 as being more on the outside. So I could do something like that. So let's. So something like that, and it makes it more audible when you would use detune with it as well. So let's detune the outsides. So I get something like that. So now I could obviously use, for instance, number 2, and let's for the time's sake, let's just switch these other 2 off and set this up. So now, and I need to put my panorama in the middle again, or otherwise number 1 sounds on the outside. And now I can hear that what am I using? I'm using nothing, I think, but I'm going to use the same square wave. So square, 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 where are you? And you hear, and I'll also put these up. So you see, this is the fast way of doing it. Because of the detuning, it sort of gives me an extra sound in there, but I'll do that differently in a moment. So I'm also going to copy this one by clicking with my Alt and Option and Shift key, and then without the Shift key in the other operators in 4 and 6, which are the modulators. So now I have this something like that. Now let's say that I actually want the volume for numbers 2, 4 and 6 to change. I've changed something in the latest or the last version, build number 101. I've changed an options, or I added options to the modulation targets. Because I would want to use my LFO1, so I click on this off thing in the first slot, so to speak, and I switch that to LFO1, and then in the targets I see that I also have carriers and modulators. So I could do something like go to all modulators and change the level for all of the modulators. So then these 2, 4 and 6 are going to be changed by whatever is set in LFO1 according to the volume that has been set in this. So now the deeper it goes, especially when I use a square wave like this, the more effect it will get. So I might want to turn that down, and I'm going to, and I could actually even take all of the volumes down, because now this is going to put that up. So you get this kind of sound, yeah. So that could be a beginning, and I, since I have everything on again, I would want to pan this to the side. So now, of course, because it's completely down the volume, you don't hear it go through that 0 point. It can't go beyond off, right? So if I take them on a bit and just lower the modulator level, it will be something that you can hear go through that. And I don't want it to be that noticeable, just enough to give me this motion kind of feeling. So now for the rest, now I want to actually be able to filter everything, and even though there is a filter in it, the filter does not work straight out of the straight out when you have put DEXZ into Voltage Modular, because I wanted to have more options available for this filter. So what I did was that you actually need to take the outputs of the stacks, as I've said that I call them, and I have the option of taking all of the stacks separately. So stack 1, which in this case would be my number 1 and 2 operator. So all of the blocks that are in the algorithm, right? So this is my stack 1, this is my stack 2, stack 3, and it is an intelligent selection. So that means that if I have less or more stacks like this, where I would have 4 stacks, then the 4 stacks are available. If I select stack 5 or 6, you don't get anything in this case, right? So I'm going back into this algorithm number 5, and instead of using stack 1, 2, 3 separately, I also have the option of selecting all stacks out. So now at least all of the outputs are sent into this slot, or into whatever keeps it in the background, and then I can decide where I go with that. So in my target, I see that there's a filter option, and I can go into my filter in. So now all of these outputs are going straight into the filter. So now it's already less, I need to put this up, by the way. You now hear that it has been filtered. So now cutoff, resonance and envelope, and also type, of course, get their actual meaning. So that means that if I dial my cutoff back, it will be, yeah, a very warm and dampened kind of sound. Whereas if I go all of the other way, I have my full square tooth again. So I'm going somewhere here, and I could use my resonance to take that up, and I could put it into a 24 dB filter because I have 12 dB, 24 dB high pass filter, high pass, band pass, notch, and a peak filter in here. So you can choose whatever you want. So now I'm at 24 dB, resonance again, and an envelope, and the envelope is responding to whatever you have set in the filter envelope here. So if I switch on my filter, I see the filter envelope. I can double click to have it selected in my big edit, and then I can do the things that I want there. So I have 4 points. I have the 0 point where it starts off, but this is also can be used, or this is used as the delay section of this this envelope. So something like this would, for instance, just build up in frequency, as you can hear, and it goes up to whatever you've got your envelope set to. So something like this. Then after the attack phase, it's going into the decay phase, where the decay height sets the level where it's ending, and of course the time makes sure that it's going down after that time. Then it's going to go through to my sustain phase, and if I have my sustain phase set up like this, or maybe even closer, sort of parallel, it would go through this phase and then go up, and then it would stay there. And then after I let go, it goes to my release, or into my release phase, where this is my release point, where it ends up. So if I take this longer, the filter itself is going to stay on longer. You hear that it's not cut off, but of course the original envelopes for every operator work into it as well. So I would probably have to change all of those and change the release point, to something that remains longer, for instance. And the easiest is to do that once and then do the same kind of thing as you did with copying a complete operator, but only copy the envelope. So like this, I'm clicking in this area with this Alt option, shift clicked, and then I do just the Alt option, click in the others, where you see that it says that it has pasted it up. So now if I use the same chord, I let go. Now these sound longer, and the filter also sounds longer, and I can see how long that takes. And if I change this and maybe even go up, and maybe this time a bit longer, something like this. And then when I let go, it's going into release phase. If I wanted this to last longer before it starts, maybe as much as 2 seconds, I could take this and draw it to the right, and now so you get something like that. If for any case you still hear sound on the end, it might be that the number 4 part of something like this is open. So I can actually hear that one of the operators, or maybe even all of them, are still open at the point. If I drag this up, you hear that the sound is coming back. So I have to make sure that it's really, really close like this. So at 0, and then make sure that I copy that setting to all of the others, and you will hear that the sort of the ghost kind of sound is now gone, and I still have this. The filter in itself is now giving that swoop, right? So I'm going to change that. I'm going to take this out. I'm I'm not going to use delay. I'm just going to use my attack phase, my decay phase, which I'll make longer. So now it's something like 2, 4, 6 seconds, 8 seconds long or something like that. And I'm dragging this over to make sure that my sustain phase is going to the bottom. So I have this. It's going to go through that. It's in the decay phase right now, and it's going now into the sustain phase, and then when I let go, it's going into the release phase. So that's a good start, and let's see what else we can do with this. Let's say that I have already this LFO set to give some sort of movement in the sound. Let's say I actually want more of a movement in this first stack. I could actually use one of the other operators, or sorry, one of the other LFOs or the envelopes that I have there, because I have LFO 1 used, but I can still use my LFO numbers 2 and 3, and I have 3 envelopes that I can still use outside of these and outside of the filter envelope. So for instance, I could use, say, envelope number 1, and I'm going to use that to change the frequency for my operator 1, and just to let you listen what happens. So if I go to this and I change it to the octave, and I'm going to change this envelope so it takes longer to reach that. But if I would take it up now, it would actually start off as soon as I'm in there. My operator 1 octave would be set by the level, and you can actually hear it clicking a bit at the beginning. So if I take this length and if I change that, so if I just drag this to the side, you hear that there's this sort of a... But just to let you listen, I'll switch off my numbers 3 and 5 carriers, and I'll change this back into the panorama. Because it's working as a carrier, and the other one, the other modulator that's on top of that, is not being changed in frequency, you get this sort of FM kind of strange sounds in that complete sound because of the changing frequency, or the changing relationship between those two. So what I could do, instead of using just the operator 1 octave, I could actually go into my stacks. So I have a stack setting in here, and I could use my stack number 1 because it was the first in that set. Let's look at the algorithm again. This was my stack 1, stack 2, stack 3. So instead of going to the operator itself, I'm going into the stack and use the stack octave. So now both operators, number 1 and 2, are both changed by this envelope. So now I hear, by the way, that as soon as I let go of a key, this frequency is going back. So that means that my envelope number 1 is not good at the end. And I can see that if I have it like this, that the last point is going straight into the release phase from the sustain and going down straight away in a right line, so or in a straight line. So there is no release. So I could just drag this to the side and drag number 4 to the side for a couple of seconds. So now it's this is more than a couple of seconds. This is about 20 seconds or something almost. So I see. So so now if it will take longer if the sound is there, so you would hear that. So now it's taking all this time to go to the top, but the sound itself is closing earlier because of the filter and the settings of the operators and stuff. So I don't hear it go down, but that's okay. Let's click this off, and maybe I actually also want this sound to start modulating, like having vibrato. So I could actually use my LFO2. My LFO1 is used for this sound drifting of these operators when compared to the carrier. So I'm going to use my LFO2, and I'm also going to use my full stack to send that to. So again, I could use the octave or the fine setting. I'm actually using the octave, so I have more depth that I can do it to. So now if I dial this up, let's see, let's change this to a higher speed. I hear now that maybe even deeper. Oh shit, I forgot I did not change the good one. Sorry about that. I have to use my number 2, of course. So let's set that to proper speed. So now I hear this, now drag this back. So I want sort of a modulation like this. But now, of course, this LFO has been sent this value, or the LFO, it's sending that value out, and it's sending it straight into stack 1 octave. So I get this all the time. But I could, for instance, let's see, I have this envelope 1 that I used that created this longer sound for the stack octave. I could actually also use that to change the amount of modulation for LFO. So if I use my envelope 1 again, and I send that to my LFOs, but which one? Actually to the LFO number 2, and there is something wrong there. Oh, there it is. Sorry, I didn't see it. My LFO2 amount, so it's will now wait longer before, and now it's taking too long to die out for the envelope 1. So I'm going to double click that, and this time is far too long. So okay, so this is now dying out earlier, and I'm using this start to also make sure that it takes a bit longer for this LFO to sort of kick in. And I could actually even drag this to the side. So you hear there's no modulation yet. And now, as soon as the envelope starts to kick in, the frequency is going up and the modulation is coming in. So let's take this to a longer attack, take it back for some time, and not going too deep into this modulation by the LFO. So that's this one that defines how much modulation there is in there. So something like that. And actually this is still only part of what we hear, so I'm going to take this back there. So now maybe the only thing that I could do, or well, there's a lot that you could do obviously, but the thing that I could do is, for instance, take my LFO number 3, dial that up, take my number 3 LFO, where is it? LFO 3, and go into my operator 1 and change the pan for that by using this. So hope you can hear that enough, but so let's maybe if I change the LFO, the modulation back up again, you'll hear it more properly. So yeah, that's a slightly more complex version of working with DEXZ, and there's so much that you could do. I could take output sources or external sources to go into the modulator inputs, and because I also have options for those, right? I could, for instance, take a mod in and send that to any of the targets that I have. And in the targets themselves, you have all of these things that so you could do something like maybe change the the reverb time or whatever you'd have. You could even do that now, for instance, with just the internal stuff, or maybe a wheel and change the mix, for instance. So if and you won't see that, of course, but if I take my modulator wheel, a mod wheel output from voltage modular, and I drag that into my wheel, and I use my wheel as a source. I should click the good one then, and use this to go into my where is it? Into my effects, and go into the mix setting, for instance, and take this up all the way. So that means that I have this now, but as soon as so you hopefully hear that when I play it like this now, I don't have any mix. But if I put my wheel up, which you don't see, it actually does that. So yeah, there's a whole lot of things that you could do with this. I will save this, and it will end up in my list of patches that are available. I hope you like it, and I hope you like DEXZ so far, and I'll see you back in a new video. So cheers for now, bye bye.